Silverwing is being read with permission of HarperCollins Children's Books. Okay guys, we're reading chapter 10, Keeper of the Spire. 6 pigeons burst after them from the turret windows. Shade shot a look over his wing, saw the birds fanning out across the sky to hem them in. "Can we outrun them?" he gasped. "Don't think so," panted Marina. "They've got to be half blind out here." "Plenty of light." She was right. It wasn't like night in the forest. Light poured up from the city. They streamed over it, swinging wildly around towers, skimming rooftops, plunging down into deep canyons. His fear was shot through with exultation. He was back in the night, his own element. No bird could catch him. He was small, black as the sky, quick as a shooting star. Still, the pigeons kept doggedly after them. "Follow me," Marina said. He spun down into the city after her, past walls of light, moaning machinery, human vehicles on the glittering roads. "Where are we going?" "Somewhere dark." She dropped down into a narrow alley between 2 low buildings, and he plunged after her, piercing the deep shadows with his echo-vision. "Here," she called out. They rounded a corner and threw themselves against a sooty brick wall, clinging with their claws. For good measure, Shade spread his black wings over Marina's body, making them all but invisible in the darkness. They stopped breathing as the pigeons thrashed past over the alley, then circled. "Where'd they go?" said one soldier. "That way, I think." "Go, we'll check here." 2 soldiers stayed behind and settled on the rooftop's edge, listening, their heads ticking from side to side. Shade watched them with his echo-vision. "It's too dark," said the first soldier. "I can't see a thing." "We've lost them," said the second. "Let's head back." "The captain won't be happy." "But what if those big ones come back?" "Forget what Saunders said. He's a liar. There's no bats like that." "Then how'd they kill 2 of us? You saw that wound on Saunders' shoulder." "Maybe they had weapons. How do I know?" "He said they carried the bodies away in their claws." The other pigeon had no reply to this. "All right, let's go back. Call the others. It'll be light in a few hours. We can send another team at dawn." They lit from the rooftop and disappeared. When he could no longer hear them, Shade hungrily sucked in air. He felt like he hadn't taken a breath in hours. Marina pushed away his wings. "Nearly suffocated me under there," she said indignantly. "Yeah, well, it worked," he shot back with a grin. He was so glad to be free of the turret, glad both his wings were still attached to his body. "You can thank me for that," she said. "They'd have caught us in the open." "Hey, I was the one who killed the light and got us out of that stinking turret." "That was quick thinking," she admitted. "Sure was." "And a lot of luck," she added. "We're lucky to be alive." Shade shrugged. His whole body was buzzing. "They weren't so tough. They're not great flyers, are they? I mean, they're not as fast as us, and they're noisy for one thing, and they can't maneuver very well. What an escape." "They'll come back for us," said Marina. He sighed. She was so sensible. It started to rain gently, and he felt suddenly very tired. "We've got to find the right tower," he said. But how would they ever find the right tower in this city of towers? All he wanted was to be out of the city and on their way again. "Let's find a safe day roost first. I don't want to get caught out at dawn with every bird in the city hunting us." Closed skies. The owl's words echoed in Shade's head. They'd never be safe now. All his life the night had been his. Now it was taken away. And all because the pigeons said bats had killed 2 of them. Giant bats. "What are gargoyles?" he asked Marina. "I don't know. You thinking of what that pigeon said?" "Maybe they just made it up." But he knew he wanted it to be true. He wanted there to be bats so big the pigeons feared them. Maybe they were big enough to fight owls, too. With Marina, he dropped from the wall and skimmed the buildings. "Maybe we could roost on a rooftop," he suggested. "No, too many pigeons around. There's got to be a tree somewhere." They rose higher for a better view and darted out over a large tree-lined square. In the center was a huge stone building. It didn't look like the others, more like a skeleton of a vast, ancient beast, crouched, its head bent into the earth. At the front, 2 rough stone towers rose up like pointy shoulder blades. Stretching back was a high-pitched roof supported by rib-like stone arches. Then at the end of the building rose the highest tower of all, tapering like an animal's bony tail. And there it was. Crowning the tower's spire was a metal cross, glinting silver in the city's glow. "Marina," he said. With relief, he swept up toward the spire, looking for a place to land, and then in horror, he slammed his wings back, braking furiously. "Look out!" he screamed. It was some sort of giant demon, crouched at the base of the spire. Spiked wings were unfolding from its back, and its huge eyes suddenly flashed. Hunched forward as if to lunge, its hellbound jaws were wide open, spewing saliva. "There's another one!" shouted Marina, veering away. Shade did a mid-air flip and chased after Marina, muscles screaming, waiting for the jaws to close around him. One wing beat and they'd be at his tail. Any second now, any second! He couldn't stand it any longer. He looked back. "Wait!" he called out to Marina. "Why aren't they moving?" She circled warily. "Maybe they didn't see us." "I almost flew into one." Surely, if they were dangerous, they'd have struck by now. With his echovision, he took another look. There they were, hunched on the corners of the spire, motionless. "They're giant bats," he whispered in amazement. He made a wide pass and saw that there were 4 of the creatures in all, one on each corner, glaring out into the night, still as stone. "They're not alive!" he shouted back at Marina. He laughed at himself. It was only the city lights that had made their eyes flash, and the saliva drizzling from their open mouths was nothing more than rainwater. Marina flew up beside him. "But what are they?" she muttered in wonder. "They are gargoyles," said one of the creatures in a deep, echoing voice. "Humans made them." Shade jolted back. The voice had definitely emanated from a set of gaping jaws. "Come inside," said the voice again, and Shade recognized it unmistakably as a bat's. And here's a picture of the gargoyle, and Marina and Shade. The stone creature's throat, Shade saw now, extended far back into the spire, like a sort of tunnel. He looked at Marina. "You expect me to go in there?" she said. "It's the right tower, the cross and everything, and there's definitely a bat inside." "Don't be afraid," said the bat's voice from deep within the spire. "Well, that's good enough for me," Marina said sarcastically. "Look," Shade said, "it's got to be safe. Otherwise, my colony wouldn't use it as a landmark, right?" "After you," said Marina. He knew he'd have to go first. He took a deep breath. It wasn't easy flying directly into the dripping jaws of the stone creature. He landed between rows of jagged teeth, half expecting them to snap shut, but they held, frozen in their fearful grimace. "Seems okay," he called back to her. She reluctantly landed beside him, and together they crawled along the trickling stone farther and farther into the petrified gullet. "That's right, keep coming," came the voice from the darkness, and Shade, casting a quick sonic glance, caught the outlines of a bat, fluttering out of sight at the tunnel's end. Overhead, a pipe spewed rainwater onto them, and they hurried past onto the drier stone beyond. The tunnel opened out. Listening intently as his echoes came back to him, Shade saw that they were inside the spire, and that the vast space housed several enormous metal objects like giant pears or flower bulbs, but hollow inside. They were suspended on a system of elaborate ropes, beams, and notched metal wheels. "My name's Zephyr." Hanging from a wooden strut was the strangest bat Shade had ever seen. He was of normal size, but his fur was a brilliant white. His wings were pale and completely translucent, so you could see the dark outlines of his forearm and long, spindly fingers. Even the latticework of his veins stood out. "It has nothing to do with age," the bat explained, as if aware of Shade and Marina's amazement. "I'm an albino. My fur and flesh lack pigment, even my eyes, when I still had the use of them." Shade looked into Zephyr's eyes now and saw that they were glazed, ghostly white with cataracts. "Come roost here with me." Shade and Marina fluttered up and dug their claws into the wood beside Zephyr. "Those stone creatures," asked Marina, "what are they?" They're called gargoyles. So that's what the pigeons were talking about, Shade said. What are they for? This is a cathedral, Zephyr continued. A holy place for humans, constructed long ago. I think they made those gargoyles to frighten away spirits and demons, which only humans would understand. As it turns out, they've served us well here in the city. No bird or beast dares come near the spire. For hundreds of years, we've claimed this place as a safe haven, and there has always been a bat sentry posted here to keep travelers in need. And for the past 20 years, I have been keeper of the spire. You live here? Shade asked. Oh yes, all year round. Then you must have seen my mother, Shade said excitedly, with Frida and the whole colony. Silverwings, yes, replied the albino bat. 2 nights ago. They didn't stay long, just enough time to take their bearings. Told you this was the right place, Shade said to Marina. Were they all right? He asked Zephyr. You're the bat they lost in the storm. Shade nodded, surprised. They told you? They think you're dead. Shade swallowed. Thought of his mother. Well, he said, I'm trying to catch up with them. Do you know which way they were going? Don't you have a sound map? Yes, but I'm not sure I understand it. It would be so much simpler if someone could just explain it so he didn't have to puzzle it out. 2 nights ago, they'd been here. The gap was widening. They'd have to hurry. He looked hopefully at Zephyr. If you could tell me... I'm afraid I don't know anything. A colony's sound maps are a great secret. You must know that. Oh, right. Shade didn't know. The albino bat frowned and turned his blind gaze on Marina. You're not a silverwing, are you? I can hear the different shape of your wings. Even the texture of your fur is different. Longer, fuller. A bright wing. Am I right? Yes, she said, glancing at Shade in amazement. But I don't belong to any colony anymore because of your band. Zephyr finished for her, head cocked slightly. Yes, I can hear it now. Strange markings. I've not heard one quite like that before. You've seen others? Of course. May I? He reached out with one gnarled claw and touched Marina's band. You were given it recently, yes? This spring. It's newer than any I've seen so far. Shade looked enviously from Marina to Zephyr. The albino bat seemed more interested in talking to her than him. Do you know what it's for? Marina asked. That, Zephyr said, is a great mystery. It's a link connecting you to the humans and... Frida said it was a sign of the promise, Shade cut in impatiently. But the albino bat quietly turned his clouded eyes on him, and Shade felt chastened. Frida knows a great deal, but I rather think it's more than a sign. The humans have a part to play in whatever Nocturna is planning for us. I believe they'll come back to the bats whom they banded. They've been marked for a reason. There's something the humans want to give them, that's certain, but I think there's something they want from you as well. Shade looked at his own thin forearms. Naked, no band. Why hadn't he been chosen? And what if he brought Marina back to his colony and suddenly she became the special one, and all those things Frida had said to him about him having a brightness were forgotten? He didn't want to be just a runt again. Why are so many bats afraid of the bands? Marina wanted to know, and she told Zephyr about the bright wings and the gray wings they'd met on their way into the city. It's right to be wary of humans, Zephyr said. Their customs are mysterious, and they've been known to attack bats thinking we were pests or worse, evil spirits, something to be destroyed. And I know for a fact that there were bands that killed their wearers, and whether that was the band itself or the nature of the bat who wore it, no one can say. My father had a band, said Shade, and he discovered something important about it, but he disappeared this spring in the south. I know, said Zephyr. They said owls killed him. We've got to catch up. They're friends of his who might know something. They can tell us where he went. Did you know you've been injured? Zephyr asked him calmly. As if on cue, Shade was suddenly conscious of a pain in his left wing. When he looked, he could see a tiny puncture in the membrane, slowly oozing dark blood. He felt a little sick. One of the pigeons must have pecked you. Yeah, said Shade dully, and then, how do you know it was the pigeons? Good ears, said Zephyr with a small smile. I hear a great deal of what goes on in the city skies, and there's been a commotion tonight, let me assure you. A visit from the Owl Ambassador is not a regular occurrence. But before Shade could launch a barrage of questions, the albino bat cut him off. Now, let's see what we can do about your wound. It's not serious, but it does need some attention. This way. He led them to a long stone ledge underneath a window and settled down on all fours among a pile of dried up leaves. At first, Shade thought they'd somehow blown into the tower, but then he realized there were many small, neat piles, all different kinds, arranged nearby. Some were so fresh they still had droplets of moisture on them. Others so old and wizened they crackled as Zephyr nosed around them. And there were other things, too, on that cluttered ledge. Bright berries, bits of twig, and large, bulbous roots with the soil still clinging to them. Insects, long dead and dried up, beetles Shade had never seen and would have thought twice about eating, scaly armor and horny spikes around the head. There were little pieces of decayed earthworm and grubs and moths. What's he got all this stuff for? Shade whispered suspiciously to Marina. I collect them, Zephyr said, obviously overhearing. There's no need to be suspicious. They're very useful, believe me. Try to keep an open mind. I've been around this earth somewhat longer than you. Shade grunted, embarrassed. He should have known Zephyr would hear. With his sonic eye, he'd seen halfway across the city to the pigeon roost. He could practically read your thoughts. After a moment, the albino bat returned with a berry in one claw and a leaf in the other. Unfurl your wing, he told Shade. He proceeded to chew the berry, working it over thoroughly in his mouth. What are you doing? Shade asked. Without answering, Zephyr leaned over Shade's wound and drizzled the finely mulched berry juice onto it. It stung and Shade flinched. Hey! This will prevent an infection from spreading through your wing, and it will heal faster. Zephyr gently spread the oily fluid with his tongue. A berry does all that? Marina asked. It's a common enough potion, said Zephyr. Now, sleep is the best thing for you. No, said Shade, we can't stay. I mean, we need to get going. We've lost so much time. But he felt exhausted, and now the rip in his wing was beginning to hurt, sending sharp jabs into his shoulder. Believe me, Silverwing, you need the sleep, said Zephyr, and you couldn't find the root you need right now, even if you wanted to. Shade didn't understand. He was about to ask him to explain, but Zephyr had already taken a very small nibble of the leaf he'd carried over. This one had a distinctive shape and dark veins, and Shade couldn't remember ever having seen it before. But then, he'd never paid much attention to the shape of leaves. You couldn't eat them, at least that's what he'd thought before now. Open your mouth, he told Shade. Shade hesitated. With a hint of impatience, Zephyr said, It will help you sleep. Reluctantly, Shade opened his jaws, wincing as the albino bat drizzled the leaf juice down his throat. At least it didn't taste terrible. In fact, it had almost no taste at all. You should sleep on all fours tonight with the wings spread flat. They were going to peck off our wings, he told Zephyr, not without pride. They said giant bats killed 2 of their soldiers earlier tonight. Yes, I overheard one of the owl's guards. And they're closing the skies, Shade said, remembering in a rush. How stupid. He should have told Zephyr all of this earlier. It was important. But with all the new things, the gargoyles and meeting an albino bat and finding the right tower... I know about the closed skies too, Zephyr told him gently. Oh, right, said Shade. He yawned, then perked up again. There are no bats that big, really, are there? Get some sleep, Zephyr told him. We'll talk more tomorrow night. Already, Shade could feel a heavy, delicious warmth spreading through his body, and a wonderful sense of safety overtook him. That sense of being home, a place like Tree Haven, close to his mother. He looked groggily at Marina. I think, probably, I'll just have a quick nap. The inside of the tower seemed to become very dark. Even his sound vision faltered, silvery lines fading, and then pure, silent blackness swallowed him up. Goth landed beside Throb on a ledge in the metal shaft. Foul fumes rose up from the darkness below, but at least they were warm. It was the best roost he could find in the rooftops of this cursed city. He didn't know much about human buildings, and he hadn't much time before the sun came up. The sun. That at least had shown him where east was, and from there he could guess at south, but he knew he'd need more than that to stay on course for a whole night. He'd have to understand these new northern stars. "We need a guide," he said to Throb. "Someone to show us how to read a sky. That's the only way to get back home. We have to find a bat." That's the end of that chapter.